Alright, welcome back everyone. If you're new to the channel, hello. If you've seen any of the videos before, welcome back. Today what we're going to do is show you how to spin up a VM very quickly on your Microsoft Windows workstation with the Hyper-V Hypervisor feature set that is part of all Microsoft Windows 10 and 11 installations. I do show you how to enable the feature set in a separate video, and I will link it in this video. However, this video assumes that you've already done that, so what we want to do first is type Hyper-V into our start menu, and there we see Hyper-V Manager is what pops up. What I usually do is right click on something that I just installed and then pin it to the taskbar or to the start menu. This means that once you pin that application, it's always going to be down here. The shortcut's always going to be down here in the taskbar. So since we want to create a VM, or in this case a Windows VM quickly with Hyper-V Manager, and this is what we need to do. So first we need to open up Hyper-V Manager, and you simply click on that. This VM would be used for something like testing. You want to test something out, and you don't want to mess up your main computer or only computer and so forth. You can spin up these virtual machines and then do whatever you like and break them or edit them. At the end of the day, you can always stop them, remove them, delete them, and nothing is affected on the machine that you normally use. So, in order to create a quick VM, you would actually go to Hyper-V Manager like we just did, and what you want to do here is right-click on the name of your computer. In this case, it's called ThinkPad. And what we want to select for the purposes of this demo is Quick Create here at the top. We press Quick Create. It brings us to the Create Virtual Machine pop-up screen here. And what we're going to do is actually utilize the Windows 10 MSIX packaging environment for this. We can use either Windows 10 or Windows 11. In this case, we'll do a Windows 10 deployment. And this is the quickest way to deploy Windows 10 on to a virtual machine on your Microsoft Windows workstation. So literally here we just select the operating system. In this case, we're going to select Windows 10, and all you have to do, you can go down here and change these settings. You can change the name. And for our purposes, I'm going to leave everything the same. If you don't use Hyper-V much, you wouldn't even change the network default switch because you would only have this switch. So you don't have to worry about these options here. You can simply click Create Virtual Machine. Now, what is going to happen is your hypervisor or Hyper-V is going to download the image for the Windows 10 operating system, like you see in this case, from Microsoft, from the internet, in order to quickly deploy this Windows 10 virtual machine onto your desktop, basically. Once you download this image once, it is saved onto your machine, so you don't have to sit through this process if you were to create another Windows 10 VM later after having completed this process one time. In this case, we will just sit here and wait for the image to download, and as soon as it's done, we can take a look at our new virtual machine. Move it on up. About 70% done. And obviously, this download will depend on your bandwidth, your download speeds. It'll depend on the speed of Microsoft. Usually it's pretty quick, but it isn't always going to download as fast as possible depending on whatever your bandwidth is. But it does download at a reasonable rate. And as I mentioned, that once you create a VM this way one time, this Windows 10 image is going to remain on your machine. So the next VM is going to be a much faster process, the next VM you create. So now that the image has been downloaded, what Hypervisor is going to do is actually verify your image to make sure that it hash checks and that it isn't like, someone isn't trying to sneak you in a virus infected VM, or I'm sorry, image. So yeah, this process does happen, and this is for our protection. I believe the signature is checked and some other things like the hash key and so forth. So this process takes just a short while, and we're basically halfway, if not further, in the creation of this new virtual machine. We can do anything we want to on our Windows 10 workstation computer. All right. So now that the download has completed, the image has been verified. We are now actually in the process of creating the Windows 10 MSIX package Windows virtual machine on our Windows 10 workstation. Again, depending on your disk, like if you have a solid state disk, this is going to go faster than on a spinning disk. If you have an older computer, this may take some time, as opposed to a very powerful, overbuilt gaming machine or something like that, where this process is much faster. But at the end of the day, this only takes a few minutes, usually. Again, the downloading piece and the validation usually doesn't happen after the first time, since you already have the data and it's already been verified. This piece is what you usually have to wait for. There's nothing for you to do here. Literally, just sit here and watch the status bar. So if you'd like to walk away and start making food or make a cup of coffee, you're more than welcome to do that during this period, because once it is done creating the machine, it's going to finish the process, and there is no input from you needed until you're ready to start using the VM. We're about halfway done here with the extraction, and I'm not using a overbuilt gaming rig here to perform this demo. So this, will take some time, but with the magic of editing, we'll spare you the, actual time you have to sit here and watch this, and we'll be talking to you here in just a minute when this is completed. Almost done, boys and girls. Almost done. All right, so boom. So yeah, that's literally it for the quick creation of a Windows 10 virtual machine on your computer. So now that you see the virtual machine has been created successfully, it is, this is the name of it. We can click on Edit Settings to view the settings. We can also do that obviously directly in a hypervisor, but by default you get, looks like 2 gigs of RAM, 2 virtual processors, a hard drive which has your operating system on it. We can click Inspect here to find out how big it is. So by default, our disk size is maximum is 127 gigs, but the current footprint of our OS disk, or on our OS disk, is actually just shy of 9.5 gigabytes, as you see there. All right, cool. Yeah, if you want to, you can edit these settings here. If you're, new to this, I would leave all the stuff the way it is. We can press OK. And if you want to connect to your new VM, we simply press connect here. So I'm going to go ahead and press connect. And another window pops up. So the first thing we need to do, as you see, the virtual machine is turned off. So yes, once your machine is created, the virtual machine is created, it is going to default to being off first. In order for us to get into this environment, we need to first click start, or that power button that went gray. It means exactly the same thing as start. It's just this little toolbar at the top. It has the little shortcuts like Microsoft always provides for us. And now what's happening is our new Windows 10 virtual machine is booting. You can kind of see here some of the resources that are being used. In this case right now, the boot process is using about 13% of our actual processor, and 2 gigs of RAM is all we're working with here. And you shouldn't need much more than that for purposes of this. If you have plenty of memory to spare on your host machine that actually hosts the Hyper-V Hypervisor environment, feel free to increase that number to whatever is needed. But if you're just trying to get into a quick, create a quick VM, get in there, try something out. Maybe you're not comfortable or are new to PowerShell and you want to get into a VM that's not going to break anything, and just go in there and run some PowerShell commands to understand how it works. This is a perfect VM or virtual machine for that. And while this is getting ready, it doesn't have to be Windows either. So as you saw during that build, one of the pop-ups there showed that you can select by default 3 Ubuntu or Linux desktop-based VMs as well that you can create. I believe it's server and workstation in there, and then you also had an option to, by default, create a Windows 11 environment that matches this environment. It just uses the newer operating system. Now, with that being said, you're not limited to those choices either. If you have access to applications, and once if you get a little bit more familiar with how the hypervisor works, you can use whatever ISO, which is an image, or whatever, to deploy a custom virtual machine, of whatever you like. So, a lot of times, at work, or when I say use this a lot, I would actually deploy a Microsoft Windows Server virtual machine, and you can deploy more than one, by the way. But I would deploy a few virtual machines, which would all be running the server operating system. I would network them together in the Hyper-V environment, and I would test out certain applications or settings or features in that environment, which is not in production. It's your personal little network inside of your workstation that hosts this environment, and you can save the state on every VM, meaning that you can, once we boot in here, we can create a checkpoint, meaning like a restore point you had with regular Windows. What that means is if I go in here, I create a checkpoint, and then I go in and I run some commands and I completely break the operating system. What I can do is shut it down, go into Hyper-V, and then restore to that checkpoint I created. And your virtual machine is going to go to the exact state, the working state of when you created that checkpoint. And that's great, for someone that is using these virtual machines for testing things out, learning how to code, whatever. Or if you're just like breaking things, it's a perfect opportunity to do that. And with checkpoints, you can revert the state of the virtual machine to a working state, or whatever state you decided to create the checkpoint in. Again, this process can take longer or can be quicker depending on the hardware that's actually hosting this environment. If you have an 8 gig of RAM, or a machine with 8 gigs of RAM, and you're running 3 of these 2 gig RAM VMs, and you're turning them on all at the same time, you're probably not going to see a lot of performance. They're probably going to be very laggy and slow. In this case, this is, I think, this box here has something like 16 gigs, maybe 8 gigs. We're only using 2 gigs, but it is old hardware, so this this takes a little while to create. However, if you were to create this, as a novice person, someone that is not familiar with this environment, you were to find the the virtual image that you need, or the image that you need to create a Windows operating system VM. You would have to source that image. You would have to read up and figure out how to do, how do you set up a Hyper-V VM from scratch, right? And I will be making, more videos which goes over that stuff as well. But in this case, you don't have to source anything. You don't have to figure out how to do anything. You literally add the feature set. You select your operating system. You can change the name, and then you can press create and walk away. Go eat dinner, come back, and when this is done, you'll have a fresh Windows, in this case 10, virtual machine that you can do whatever you like with. Also, once you create this VM, you can duplicate it and create more than one. So you literally, by creating one VM, you can duplicate it and create 3. Once this virtual machine is done getting ready, and you can use more than one virtual machine at a time, or separately, or whatever, or you can interface them together, network them together for whatever testing or playing around or whatever you like to do with them, you can do that. So that's great. You can network them together like a virtual office, right, with a bunch of workstations. All right, so our VM is basically done getting ready. What's happening now is that, I don't know if you saw, it is now restarting. And very shortly here, we should be seeing what we already know as the Microsoft Windows welcome screen. Yeah, there we go. This is starting to look a little bit more familiar, right, folks? Um, I'll try to edit this out so you guys don't have to sit through a lot of this waiting. However, you're obviously more than welcome to skip ahead in the video and get to the parts that you'd like to see. And yeah, leave comments or suggestions. I love constructive criticism or criticisms, period, as well. So if there's something you don't like or want me to do different or a video you'd like me to make, please feel free to leave a comment. Don't forget to like the video. That definitely helps. And subscribe if you'd like to see more. But definitely leave comments where you can request, other things. And I'll, gladly within reason, will create a video on those other things that you have interest in. All right, come on. I haven't done this in a while. So unfortunately, the machine that I picked for this, like I said, probably 3 or 4 times by now, is not the best or the newest or overpowered by any means. It's just an older laptop that I'm using strictly for this, and it's taking its sweet time, let me tell you. All right, you must have heard me talking about it. So all right, so we get to our regular Windows like installation setup screen. So we're going to select, or United States is pre-selected for me because I am located in the United States. So I'm going to press yes. You can obviously change the country you're in here. And then, select it and press yes to continue. We're almost there, folks. But imagine, yeah, I mean, this is like a second computer within your computer. Isn't that awesome? The right keyboard layout, yeah, US. We're going to say yes here. No, we don't want to add a second keyboard layout. There's very rarely that you will. If you do, you could do that. We're going to skip that. And there isn't no right or wrong way to do these settings here. It's just, depends on what you need. Like in this case, I'm trying to make this video for someone that hasn't necessarily done this before or is unfamiliar with the process. So we're going to be pretty much as a default, or go with the defaults as much as possible in this video, just to make it easier on everybody. So literally, as you saw, the keyboard and the language selections are actually automatically pre-selected for you based on basically where you're located and so forth, what your source or host machine that's running this hypervisor is reporting as well. So you can literally just select the defaults and click through to get to the end result of being able to get into this workstation or this VM virtual machine workstation faster. All right, so as always, we have our license agreement. So there's lots of fine print here. We're gonna press accept, and we're almost there, folks. Just a moment. Come on, just a moment's been like a bunch of moments ago. All right, all right. So last couple steps. So when we log into any Windows machine, right, we have an account that's associated with it. Now, obviously, here we have some input that's being asked of us, rather. So Microsoft nowadays defaults to a Microsoft's Worker School account. That's what they want you to use. In this case, and in most cases, when I'm doing any kind of testing, I don't want to associate any kind of like actual account that I own and use with this virtual machine because I'm going to use it for testing. So the way to get through that is by clicking this button down here. This is domain join instead. It doesn't mean that you are strictly tied to joining a domain, but this will give us an option of creating a local user account as opposed to using like an online Microsoft based account. So we'll click down here, domain join instead. All right, so now we can simply name an account. I'm going to call this username user, and then press next. Now, this is kind of an FYI. If obviously you can create a very memorable password. If you're just using this for testing, and you're going to set up accounts later or whatever, you just want to get to the point of the VM being completely created. The trick here is if you don't actually enter any password, you can press next. Otherwise, if you enter a password, it'll ask you to enter it again, and then it'll ask you to create create the 3 different questions and answers to be able to reset your password. In this case, we're just creating this, to run for a few minutes, test something out, and then we're going to shut it down. I'm just going to press next to not create a password. All right, so we get to the infamous choose your privacy settings for your device screen. Again, if you are not familiar with this, ideally you can just press accept, and I think that's what I'm going to do. There are some things in here that you should probably be aware of. There's some customization ads. Things are being tracked basically, and it's Microsoft is asking you like, what do you want tracked and what you don't want tracked. If you like using Google Maps, location is going to need to be enabled. Find My Device is a good idea to keep enabled, though for a virtual machine, we really don't need this, so we can disable that. Don't necessarily want to send my diagnostic data to Microsoft, so I'm going to turn that off as well. Microsoft to use our diagnostic data, well, we're not sending it anyway, so I'm going to turn this off as well. Send optional inking and typing diagnostic data. No, we're just going to say no. Again, it's a test VM. They don't need to know any of that, and we don't really want them to track us with an advertising ID. So most cases, this is how I would proceed, and maybe even turn off location. But in this case, we'll leave it on, and then you press accept like I just did, and we're almost there. All right, Cortana. Geez, okay. Cortana, Siri, whatever. Virtual assistant for a VM, I always say not now. I don't. Not even just for a VM. I don't use Cortana. I don't like it. You might like it. Maybe you're creating this VM for this. Then you can press accept. I'm going to press not now. Oh boy. Well, let's find out what's new from Windows. What is new from Windows? It's not Windows 10. What's new from Windows is a bunch of just a moments. All right. Geez, hello. All right, so we're getting to the end here, folks. The light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter. And once again, thanks, Microsoft. This might take several minutes after 1,000 moments. Now we are waiting for several minutes. That's okay. Usually when I do this on my work rig, or one of my other machines that I do use, to perform my duties as an IT consultant, or when I'm working for an MSP or something like that, the rig or the computer I use is actually much more powerful than this older Lenovo ThinkPad. So this is actually probably the longest I've sat around watching the VM being created since or for some time now. However, for the purposes of this video, I wanted to use a VM, or I'm sorry, you wanted to use a laptop that someone out there might use, who's and there's nothing on it. It's a good test or demonstration rig. But anyway, yeah, if you have a machine that's within the last made within the last 3 or 4 years, chances are that this is going to go much faster for you. The beauty of YouTube is that you are absolutely more than welcome to fast forward to the bits and pieces that you guys want to see or don't want to see, but there's absolutely no reason to sit here and watch the screens and the letters go by. Literally there's nothing that we can input right now. Until this is done, we can't use the virtual machine, but we're getting there. Well, one thing I want to point out while we're still waiting for this, so I don't know if you saw earlier, but I did mention that 2 gigs is what we had assigned to this virtual machine, and what our CPU usage was earlier was slightly higher than this. But right now, during the install process, we're using slightly over a gig. So this will fluctuate depending on what resources the virtual machine needs within the parameters that were set. All right, so as you see, we're seeing our desktop. So um, we can either press connect here, which will use the RDP or the remote desktop application to connect to this VM, or we can X out of here and just continue to the desktop. We're on our network, so it recognizes that we are on a network. It'll be the same network that your host PC is on. But yeah, I mean, here we go. This is a completely separate VM. Um, 10 enterprise evaluation, 90-day license. But this VM here is, a brand new VM. You can do whatever you want to it. Let me show you how we can create a checkpoint. So, in order to, if we wanted to create a checkpoint of this virtual machine when it's running and everything's perfect and we haven't broken it yet, in order to do that, there are multiple ways to do that. But one of the ways to do it is in this screen, select the action menu, and then click on checkpoint. Or you can press Control plus N on your keyboard. All right, so we can name it here out of box new. Okay, and that's just a name. You can put whatever you want in here. Just create a VM or Windows 10 base, whatever makes sense for you. Press yes, and what's going to happen is that Hyper-V is going to create a checkpoint for this VM. So we can actually click here, and with the VM highlighted in this upper area under virtual machines, we look here. Our checkpoints are listed. So there's an automatic checkpoint that was created automatically. Duh, right? But we created a checkpoint. Like when everything is working, we were able to log into the desktop. Whatever settings we have till this point, everything is stable. We can always return to this checkpoint. And then we can always create another checkpoint. You can create more than one. So you're not limited to just one and so forth. You could revert to that checkpoint we just created here, or you can do it a number of different ways later. But anyway, so to not stretch this video any longer, this is basically the what it takes to create quote unquote quickly a Windows 10 virtual machine on your Windows workstation, laptop, or desktop. So you get a mini computer inside of your real computer that you can do whatever you want with, and you can have more than one. So, anyways, guys and girls, let me know if you have any questions, suggestions, complaints, whatever you like. Please leave a comment, subscribe. I'll be putting out a lot more videos. Like, because that does help me gauge, the interest. But see you guys soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.